I thought I was going to burp. All right.
I thought you were waiting for me.
As you know,
that's something we should have discussed.
This is the measure of an episode, where it is our continuing mission to explore what makes Star Trek proper Star Trek. And I have nothing on this one, not just
a Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
I know, yeah, really. I'm definitely on the animation style, but this one is Jonathan.
And I'm Paul this time.
Do you remember what our criteria are, Paul? Since you've done this over 100 times.
Yeah. So, is there a B plot? So
that's the first one.
Yeah. And does Kirk flirt with anyone? No. So, is there science fiction in the story? Wow, why am I so bad at this? I've done this so many times.
I know. I feel like I was the one who struggled last time we talked about Star Trek.
Why am I totally blanking on this? That's actually really surprising. Like, genuinely, like I'm, really surprising me. Because I wrote a whole song about it and everything.
That's true. Well, did you? I thought Jeremy did.
No, it was, I was a ghostwriter on that one.
Were you going to say, is it presented in a unique or novel fashion?
Unique or novel, yes, that's the one, yeah. And is there a moral or ethical dilemma?
Who are you? We've done this how many times now? You introduce yourself now.
Oh, I thought you were suspicious of who I was.
I mean, I am always, but the script says I am fill in the blank.
Well, I'm Paul.
And this one is Jonathan. And this week we were supposed to watch. Oh, hang on. You told me what the episode was. Oh, nope. We were supposed to do a different episode than what we currently did. But if you have been listening to our podcast from the very beginning, you will know that not often and not drastically, but we have changed our criteria every once in a while. It used to be only 2 criteria. We added a third one. It used to be only the live action show and then all of the completed series. But we started adding, we did Picard season 1 and then we did season 2 and we just finished up season 1 of Strange New Worlds. We've done a couple Lower Deck episodes. So we discussed it as a team and we decided that we are just going to do any and all Star Trek. That includes the animated series way back in the day, and it includes the kids show Prodigy and Lower Decks and Discovery. So to honor that, Paul and I decided to watch and analyze Star Trek, the animated series. And we did season 2, episode 2, which is BEM. And I love this blurb. The Enterprise crew is being observed as their suitability to meet with advanced civilizations.
That feels incomplete.
Yeah. Yes. Very much so. I mean, it has a conjunction.
Yeah.
There's no verb in that second part. So it definitely finishes with a comma.
Right.
It's not wrong. It's just incomplete. Their Enterprise crew is being observed. I don't even know how it's supposed to end. As their suitability to meet with advanced civilizations is being observed.
I think instead of as, it should be for.
What is being as their suitability to meet with advanced civilizations for?
No, instead of as. So they're being observed for their ability to meet with advanced civilizations.
Okay. Yeah.
Problem solved.
Right? Just change the conjunction. There you go.
Anyway,
yep.
It was a weird episode.
So my very first note is how the episode seemed as though it was the reading, William Shatner's reading was like this was an audiobook, 100%. Like you did not need to watch what Kirk was doing because it did not match the emphasizing that he was providing. Even the star date, like the very first star date, he's like 7403.6. Like,
what do I feel like putting after the point today?
Exactly. Or he was looking at the time. It's like 7403 point. Oh, okay, it's 6. But yeah, and then just all of it, everything that was done by Shatner was 100% emoted as if he was doing an audiobook. Like he either he didn't see the animatics or he wasn't given proper direction. I mean, this is the first time that I can think of where actual actors and not voice actors were given the parts of the characters. And so
Hmm.
it might be that he wasn't given a whole lot of acting direction, or if he I don't know if you've seen Shatner's review of people doing impressions of him. Have you seen that?
I have not seen that. No.
Okay, so there there are a couple times where the cameraman or the director of this bit is talking to Shatner and like trying to tell him what they're doing, and he's like, "What? I can't hear you, and you're just pissing me off." And so, so I could definitely see Shatner giving his line and the director being like, "So can you do it just?" And he's like, "No, I acted it the way we're doing it, and that's the end of it. Move on."
He was famously that way. Like, the
Right.
whole story about sabotage, right?
No, do tell.
So there's a scene where, like, I don't know, in one of the Star Trek episodes, he says sabotage, and the director says, basically like, cut, great, okay, but this is how the word is pronounced, and he goes, you say sabotage, I say sabotage. And it's just like that's how it is in the show now.
Right.
Um,
Oh
yeah,
man.
he didn't put up with anyone.
Right? I love it. But yeah, that's that was actually kind of my next note, which is it's all acted as if it's read and not acted, and I am here for it.
The incongruity between the way things are said, or the way that things are supposed to have an intensity on the screen, and the way that they just like turn their head as if someone just turned on a TV that was playing Golden Girls or something. Like,
Right.
it's the most sort of detached thing. Like, they're so passive in the stuff, and there's like they're turning their heads towards like proper threats.
Yes.
And so, like, yeah, there's these readings for things that are meant to be so much bigger, and it's just like it's a real disconnect.
Yeah.
And this is the same year. So I looked this up. I looked up a few things here. This
Okay.
is the same year that Robin Hood, Disney's Robin Hood, came out.
Oh, okay.
And Charlotte's Web. So like animation was kind of fine at the
Right.
time. Like,
Right.
we didn't need these cardboard cutouts that they basically did the whole time.
Mhm.
Also, this was the thing that really surprised me. What channel was this? Was it CBS?
Yes.
NBC. Okay, so CBS was super excited about the show. Like, they gave it a $75,000 budget per episode, which adjusted for inflation is $500,000 today.
Oh, wow.
Like,
Okay.
it's just it's so much money, and I'm just like, but where? Like, I feel like this is the kind of thing that like the Star Trek fan clubs in high schools could put together today. And I know that tools are different and everything, but like I mean, is free today? I mean, I guess it must be. Free today is so much better than $500,000 50 years ago.
Yes,
That's
but
crazy.
I would definitely speculate that most of that budget went to the cast.
Perhaps. I know. So it didn't go to the writers. They were so many writers were so excited to write for a version of Star Trek that didn't have to like constrain the budget for what they could do with live action.
Yeah.
That the deal was $1,300 flat fee, no residuals.
Wow. And they took it.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, I know also, at least for Next Generation, they were one of the last shows to continue accepting spec scripts from fans. And then they did like a complete 180 and didn't even bother. Like they sent it back unopened, saying like, we refuse to look at this just because we could potentially be working on a script idea that you have suggested, and if we choose not to go with yours, but then we do ours, you could sue us for plagiarism.
Yeah.
But the writer of this actually did the Tribble scripts. He did Trouble with Tribbles and more Tribbles, more Troubles. But this was a script that had actually been tossed around since the original series, and then it was supposed to be in the first season, and the first season was 16 episodes. This was supposed to be episode 17, and it's amazing that you're saying that they put so much money behind it, because it barely got a season 2, as you can see in Paramount Plus. There's only 6 episodes, and they're all kind of the rejected scripts from the first season and the original series. So it's just interesting that that Paramount was so excited about it until it aired, I guess.
Yeah, that is weird.
But anyway, so to go into the episode, we start with Ari Hubin is his name.
Yep.
And do you know? Did you read where BEM comes from?
No.
It comes from bug-eyed monster, which was a common term used for sci-fi aliens at the time. And David Gerald specifically wanted to make an episode that had BEM in it and have it not be a BEM. And so that was the idea originally. And the original proposal of this whole script idea of you having BEM in it was where Spock always talks about how emotion is what causes prejudice. And he wanted to write an episode where what if logic caused the prejudice? How would you counter that with emotion? And that's kind of where the seed of the idea came from. Went through a lot of rewrites, a lot of changes. But anyway, so this script he was really excited to do because finally he was able to provide a monster that was not anatomically correct in any way without having any kind of budget restraints, kind of what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Do you know who produced the Star Trek series?
Gene
the animated
Roddenberry?
series. Sorry, the animated series. Like what animation company it was. Did you find that out?
I did not know.
So it's FILMation. Are you familiar with FILMation?
Sure.
FILMation is my jam. FILMation is the one that did He-Man. They also did Ghostbusters, Brave Star, a lot of the early 80s and a lot of the cartoons through the 70s. And it kind of shows like one of the reasons why they were able to do so many cartoons is because they did a lot of reuse of animation. And they were kind of the first ones to do so. And they were the first ones to provide syndicated cartoons right from the get-go, rather than have them be married to a studio and then go into syndication later. That didn't happen.
That just seems weirder to me though, because like it seems that if you're gonna do reusable animations, then that gives you an opportunity to kind of amortize the budget from across the whole series. Just take a bit from each episode because you're gonna be able to reuse it so much.
Right.
So why isn't the running animation better? Why isn't the mouth movement better? Why isn't like there some emoting that happens with some swappable features on faces?
Right.
Like, if they're saving so much money by reusing these assets, why are the assets still so bad?
Right. No, it's totally a valid question, especially on this series. There are so many shots where, like it's almost like anime from the 50s, where, well, I mean, not even from the 50s, up through very recently, where to really cut down on the budget of somebody talking, they'll have their hands over their mouths in such a way that, you can't see what is being said, and that way you can not only minimize the animation, but you can also dub it in any way you want.
Sure, but very much to anime's credit, they would then put that budget towards like the fight scenes.
Right. Which maybe they did. There weren't any fight scenes in this episode, so we don't know.
I mean, there were some conflict scenes between two parties.
Yes, but they didn't actually fight. One of them had phasers, and then the phasers were gone, and they immediately gave up.
What an exciting show.
Which we haven't even talked about, barely.
I know.
So they talk about how BEM is coming in, and how he sets the coordinates, and he hasn't gone on any of the past 6 missions. He's basically just been holed up in his quarters this entire time, and now he's deciding to go on what could potentially be a dangerous mission. And this was the start, at least for me, this was the start of me suspecting something from him. And the first act just kind of continued to present it that way as well. Like he sets the coordinates where Kirk and Spock specifically fall into the water right away, which was a great thing about transporters. Like clearly the transporter does not care where you put someone.
Right.
So as Paul, as you and I have talked about before, like you can take somebody from sleeping and transport them, because you can transport somebody from sitting to standing. That means the molecular structure completely changes into whatever you want. So you can send them from sleeping to full out run.
Do you get used to it? Like that's gotta be, I feel like that's super disorienting.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
okay. So
yeah.
So, okay. Someone, cause I know we've seen like someone full on running to being basically stationary like as they're coming off the plane, like they're running away from danger, is at least one of the movies.
Mhm.
Running away from danger, get beamed up, and they're just like standing there on the
Right.
pad. Okay. Um, is your brain kind of equipped for that? The sudden stationary, is altering your brain part of it? Because if so, could they transport you from your bed asleep to like full on battle alert ready?
Just beam you to the console, like ready to fire.
Yeah. And then back to bed with you.
Just there long enough. You come back out like 2 hours later, like, man, I had the weirdest. Wait a minute, were we in a battle? Did you beam me out? Well, and the other thing too about that is the transporter job is probably like one of the hardest jobs you have for training, because if the computer's not caring where you are putting anyone, then that means you have to know exactly where the ground is and what the terrain is to land somebody directly on the ground and not have their feet buried a couple inches down or floating above the ground.
Yep. Yeah. There's that makes me wonder. Like, is it every time you transport, is there just like for safety's sake they put you there like 2 millimeters off the ground, so you always just like settle a little bit every time you transport?
Yeah. And it's just something that you have to get used to. Like you're standing on solid ground and then you're just like, whoa. Just that, that momentary panic where like you thought you were done with your steps, like going down the stairs, but then there's that one more.
Right.
But I guess not even. Like it's just a slightly uneven ground where, yeah, probably not. If you're just a couple millimeters above the ground. But anyway, so Kirk and Spock fall into the water. And immediately BEM jumps in to save them. And this is where shit gets real.
Yes. I'll go ahead and say, very upsetting. Like this thing that happens all of a sudden. Right. Yeah, I wasn't ready for it.
Right. Yeah. Nor was I. Like I did not see that coming at all. But this is the thing that was so confusing about the episode. Like this is all very intentional of him. He didn't let anybody else touch the transporter. He specifically took those pieces away. It seemed like he was working with the people on the planet until he got caught, and then it was clear that he wasn't. His actions were so confusing once everything was explained by the end, like because his actions weren't explained.
Yeah, I mean, like you're not wrong. Like I was along for the rides. Like as they kept on presenting new information, I didn't really think about what I thought was happening up until that point.
Right.
But like when he was running away, it really felt like he was running towards something, which I guess he was, but then like it was not like an accomplice. Like he just like knew that he needed to get captured. I don't know. Yeah, it was really weird.
Yeah, like all his motives were so strange by the end of the episode. It seemed like there was something that he was concealing. And then by the end of the episode there wasn't anything. It was like, okay, so then why did you take their stuff? Why did you specifically land in this spot? Why did you run away after Kirk told you not to? Why did you run away after Kirk told you to come back? Like twice.
Mm-hmm. Well, so, I mean, what I gather is that his species needed help from some commanding figure, some, really important person who could do awesome space stuff. Okay. And this was a test. Like they were seeing if he could fit the bill. Okay. But I mean, even that was so stupid. Like there was this, talking about like taking away the phasers and everything. This skips a bit ahead in the episode, but he says that he won't like debase himself or degrade himself or whatever by using these tools. But then he says then like, but you are welcome to. And I think that's such a weird stance to take at this point in the future. These are tools. Like they're so important, the tools, the communicator and the phaser, that like he might as well get upset that Kirk can't fly through space without the use of a ship. Like it's such a bizarre standard.
Well, and it was super passive aggressive. He's like, but you can, but no, you missed the best part. He's like, but you can demean yourself. He's like, demean, he's like, right? I'm far above this, but you can be base. That's fine. Like,
and if it was fine, why'd you take them away in the first place?
Right? Yeah, no, great point. They're all standing there, like we said. BEM runs away. Kirk and Spock chase after him. But this is an important part. Like Uhura is talking about how the planet is being covered by something that they can't identify on their sensors, and so she needs to beam back up the search party. And Scotty's like, "But Kirk and Spock are gone," and Uhura essentially says, "You have your orders," which was awesome. And Scotty was like, "Okay, here we go." Like you're right. We need to do this. But I love the fact that, again, given the time period, given everything that's happening, like the fact that Uhura, yes, she's adhering to Kirk's orders, but she is still telling someone else to follow their orders, and they acquiesce, which was awesome to see.
Yeah, no, for sure. To I guess really underscore that point. Scotty's just a stereotype. Like, did you hear him say that like not even the Loch Ness monster could penetrate that field or whatever?
Oh no, I don't know how I missed that, but I absolutely missed that. I'm so sorry that I did. Yep. Darn. But here's we you and I have talked about this before off the podcast, but and I've also talked about it with my brothers, but like there's no insult for Scots. There's no derogatory term for a Scotsman. So they can kind of say or do whatever they want, and that's fine. It makes sense that you didn't know that.
Well, I'm trying to make up one, and I'm getting really offensive in my head. So I won't say anything out loud.
But so Kirk and Spock are alone, and they have their fake communicators, and Kirk calls the Enterprise. And I don't know if you remember or not, but we've had episodes where Kirk cannot connect with the Enterprise, and in those episodes, he calls and he's like, Kirk to Enterprise, hello? They're not answering. And so I love that in the end,
he's had a lot of sugar.
Right. Then he goes up to Spock and says, "Why are your ears so pointy? What's this over here?" No, so this time, I don't know if you caught it or not, but he did pause. He was like, Kirk to Enterprise. And so it was just like, my note is he acted this scene better than he ever did in any of the live action.
Well, I mean, it's 4 years on.
Right. He knows the character by now. Yeah.
With animation, it's pretty cool that like the crew gets to be staffed by like actual aliens. Real sort of odd looking people.
So speaking of budgets and actors, they didn't bring back Walter Koenig because they were trying to save costs. And so they didn't hire him back for his part as Chekov, which is why we have an alien helmsman.
Okay.
But
I mean, yeah, screw that guy.
Right. I think they literally hired everybody else.
Yeah.
So I wonder, like, I don't know the backstory behind it. I know that that's the reason, but I don't know if like he was demanding way too much money, or if when they got to his name, they were like, how much have we spent so far? Ooh, we barely have enough money for the animation. So we'll just stop there.
I don't know. You should ask them.
I did. They haven't gotten back to me. I took your sister's advice of emailing them saying that
William Shatner was your
Shatner
dad?
is my daddy. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard anything back?
No, surprisingly. I thought they would email me back right away, but nothing.
A cease and desist from William Shatner.
Right. I went and asked him. I was like, Dad, what is this?
Things have been tense around the house. So yeah, I thought that was cool. BEM, I thought sounded like someone doing a bad impression of Winnie the Pooh.
Okay, I see it.
Yeah. There's the part where BEM gets kidnapped and they say it's a food gathering party. And I mean, gathering means you're going to like collect stuff like berries and nuts and that kind of stuff. This is a food hunting party. And how does he know? I mean, how do they know it's not just like a small battalion, like some warriors?
Yeah.
That struck me as odd.
Okay, so what I took that to be, kind of given the dialogue that kind of follows that, is it was supposed to be a joke, like because they were all around BEM, so they were saying that BEM was on the menu.
Is that a joke?
Well, yeah, like they didn't know what was
is that
actually
Vulcan
what?
humor?
He is only a
Oh,
Vulcan.
they're going to eat him.
I was gonna make a joke about how like they can have it piecemeal, but he doesn't know that he can segment himself yet.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's talk about that. So they're all in the cages because Kirk and Spock get captured trying to save BEM.
Yeah.
And BEM is all like disappointed in them and, you know, is going to like set them free because he's decided that like they're not worth his time anymore. And so he separates and there's like no reaction from Kirk and Spock. Like it, again, I found it upsetting and I'm watching it as a cartoon. If I watched someone just like split themselves in half to release me from a cage, I could only imagine horror. Like, it's
right.
It would have to be one of the most upsetting things.
Yeah. Maybe that's why. Like his brain just blue screened, you know, and so he just
he faints,
just instantly. Yeah.
And then they got to teleport him awake again.
Just endless cycle. Because again, just going back to BEM's motivation, like it was just so confusing. He got captured. Kirk and Spock got captured trying to save him. And he's like super disappointed. So he gives them their weapons back so they can escape. And then again, he's like, no, I'm out of here. Like, I'm not doing this. And then he gets captured again. And then he walks off, like breaking himself apart, which again, the note there is actually far creepier than what actually happened in the episode. Because it was not supposed to be that those parts could float. It was that they were all autonomous, and so they would have actually all like collapsed to the ground and crawled out.
Okay, so I mean, yes, that is more horrifying, but more sensible, because I was thinking about this in the context of Iron Man, about how like when he's doing that thing that he does to just kind of like show off, where he's like hovering 6 feet off the ground, just the amount of force, the downward force required to keep him at that point would be so loud that like it would it would just completely, like, you couldn't have a conversation with him. Like there'd be no way to hear through that. So having BIM's like head kind of float, like that would also be very, very loud. Not as loud as Iron Man, but you know, still. Because equal and opposite reactions, there's got to be some kind of downward force to keep that head up in the air. If it was just like rolling around on the ground, upsetting, but you know, obeys physics.
Right. Yeah, I do see what you're saying, but I still think watching, because it's kind of, it's body horror. It's like it. Obviously, we saw the legs sprout arms, which stands to reason that the head would sprout legs.
I don't like any of those sentences.
Right? Just gonna nope right out of this.
Obviously, the legs sprout arms. Go on.
I'm with you so far, right? Obviously.
Obviously. Ugh.
I mean, right. How else are they gonna grab things like that?
Of course.
So one of the things that was again, like in one of the original drafts, BEM was supposed to be a practical joker, and we would meet him in the cold open by him shaking hands with Kirk and leaving his hand in Kirk's hand to like kind of crawl up to his shoulder. Like,
yeah,
and
hilarious. That
right, the cold open would end with Kirk just screaming bloody horror.
And then after the opening like song and everything, it's Kirk in therapy.
Right. Well, no, it's Kirk in sickbay, passed out, and they transport him back to wake him up.
Yep. Battle ready.
He's in the chair.
It's wild to think that this is the version of the script that passed. That like,
right.
You're saying that it went through so many rewrites, and like this is how it ended.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
that's crazy.
Unfortunately, there were a lot of notes from Gene Roddenberry that David Gerald, who was the writer, just was so opposed to, like having the deity watching over the Aborigines. David Gerald was thinking, haven't we already done enough God episodes? And he's not wrong, floating clouds, gods, and computers behind the actual idea. Like that was those were the three ideas of the original series. And so
Mm-hmm.
so what was nice about this episode was that the God was kind of actually a part of the episode rather than the crux of the episode.
Are we going with God?
Well, the deity, the thing that was watching over the Aborigines.
Didn't they call it the intelligence?
I mean, Spock even said similar to your God.
Yeah. At the end is like a metaphor.
Yeah, but I can call it the intelligence. I don't care. It's not going to take away my phaser.
Right. Yeah. So when they introduced the intelligence, my immediate thought was, of course, the way that she's going to like use her powers on them is to make them be even more stationary than they already are, by keeping them in stasis and everything.
Right.
And then the fact that her presentation, I guess I don't want to assume gender, but is just as the effectively the cloud. Like it's just a bunch of sort of like colored dots that are glowing and everything.
Yeah, they just needed a computer and it would have been the trifecta.
No, I'm so disappointed in the production values of this.
Yeah, I'm very curious now, knowing the cost that went into it, why the animation was as stilted as it was. I mean, obviously, the animation that you're talking about is for movies. But again, like, it can't have been that the budget for those movies was so much higher per episode.
But even if we're talking about, like, contemporary cartoons, I mean, the Flintstones and the Jetsons was before this, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, part of it was that I know that He-Man wasn't. I know that Brave Star was, but I don't know if Animated Series was. I believe that it was rotoscoped. I'm not sure if that's the right phrase for animation, but they specifically had actors act these things out and then didn't draw over it, but used their fluidity as the foundation for what they drew.
Mm-hmm.
And and it may have been at this point that they were kind of doing it as if they were as if they were just in real life. And when you transfer 1-to-1 real life to animation, it's boring.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why. I mean, animated is like an adjective to describe something that's a little bit over the top.
Yeah. Very true.
We skipped over one part that I did want to say something like, so after they get out of the cages and they get recaptured, which happens a surprising amount of times in 23 minutes. There's the part where Kirk says that he seriously considered becoming a librarian or whatever. Is that true? Has that ever come up in a different Star Trek episode? Or is this just something that they put into this episode?
I don't know for certain, but I feel like I can say with a decent amount of certainty that has not come up before. That is not one of the career paths that he was considering.
Okay. Because, I mean, and then you could hear in the writer's room someone being like, well, we don't want to insult librarians. And so then Spock is like, I mean, librarians is a job that's no less challenging.
Right.
Like, okay, cool.
Yeah. But then they're also
really
like, call a spade a spade.
Well, we got spears in our neck.
Well, yeah. But they say, like, but far less dangerous.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't imagine librarians get threatened very often.
So how does the episode end?
So yeah, they say that they're gonna get out. They double stack the communicators, and that's like powerful enough.
Well,
okay,
yeah.
whatever.
So I loved that that's what they decided. Like, first off, that he tries to call the deity on his communicator.
Yeah.
And at first, what I assumed that was the script said, I'm going to call to her. And so the animators read that and they were like, oh, okay, he's going to use his communicator. But then the script, like you said, doubles down. Like, but they commit to it. They're like, why don't we stack the communicators and give it that extra oomph? Because that's how that works.
Yeah. And so they communicate with her and they're like, sorry, we didn't know this planet was like under your jurisdiction. We'll leave. And then she's like, fine. She lets them go. And then they don't leave.
Right.
And they go like try
They
and
bring
save
more
them
people in.
again. Yeah, they bring more, yep. They bring more people in, and then they get confronted again, because that's just this whole episode over and over again. And they talk about how BEM was a bad judge of character. What?
But they get captured because they started to use their phasers, and she's like, do not hurt my people. And so this time they're like, we're gonna go. And so she lets them go. So they bring in more people, and then they use their phasers. Like,
yeah.
And she doesn't say anything.
I mean, she says a lot.
Right. But she didn't stop them. She wasn't like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you're doing specifically
We've been
what
over this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Say what again?
So, okay. So
yeah.
BEM is whatever, like a conglomerate species, whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And he says that this unity is faulty or whatever, and did not judge Kirk and Spock correctly, and is therefore like it can't be this unity anymore. Right. I don't get the sense that he's going to die, not in like a proper sense. It's just that he'll be sort of reconstituted with other legs and heads and everything, and it'll just be like a new entity to see if that's better. And then they're like, no, don't do it. And he like listens to them, and I think that's super weird because he, as they, I don't know, as a member of this species, should have a better sense of what's appropriate in a circumstance like this. Like, I absolutely trust this thing to make its own decisions about whether or not it should break apart its own body and join up with other body parts.
Right.
Kind of along those lines, when the other party members do beam down and everything, and they're like, we got to find BEM. He's in 3 parts. And they're just like... I think Scotty says like, what was that? Or, like something like that. But my thought was just like, so he's dead?
Like, right. Yeah. Well,
so we can leave him?
And he could be anywhere at this point. All right. So Paul, what do you say? Was this a proper episode?
Boy, so this one's fuzzy. Like, it's fuzzy all around. Like, I don't know exactly how much sci-fi this is. I don't know exactly how much moral this is. Like, it's, I mean, staying true to me, Paul, I'm gonna say no, it's not proper Star Trek.
Yeah, that's so you. See, and I want to say yes. I feel like the morals and ethics were kind of presented like, how much do you protect and how much do you intervene, both on on something you're taking, on something you're taking care of, whether it's a guest in your house or it's a child,
But they weren't conflicted at all. Like every step of the way, they were very resolute in what they were doing.
No, because Kirk did not want to save BEM. Like there were several times where, he's like,
But he wasn't conflicted about it. Like he had like, yes, it's really annoying that I got to do this, but I got to do this.
Right. Nobody was like, you don't have to. And he was like, do I have to?
Right.
All right. Yeah.
And then the sci-fi is...
It doesn't matter. If there's no moral or ethical dilemma, like we don't have to debate anything else as much as you want to, because you always do.
But I'm really curious to know what you thought the sci-fi would have been. Because honestly, have you seen The Suicide Squad?
The Suicide Squad? No.
Okay. So there's the detachable kid,
mm-hmm.
which is this guy that can make his arms just kind of it's really bizarre, but they just sort of float through the air at the pace that anyone would walk. They're not fast, they're not strong. He can just be really annoying with his hands at a distance. And that's very much what I thought of first thing when we saw this guy's powers, or whatever it is, the conglomerate species, the way that's presented.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not sci-fi. I mean, I don't think anybody could say that the Suicide Squad is sci-fi. So that wasn't it.
Right.
Is the God Cloud sci-fi? What's been my stance on that?
Because because the thing is it's not explored in any way. If it's just presented, if it's just a piece of the plot that moves it forward, or that is just it's just there to move the story forward, that's not sci-fi. It's just technobabble. So like he's able to escape by taking his body apart, but there's nothing about, like, they don't explain how the aliens use that for survival. I guess it's kind of self-explanatory, but
or even the mechanisms by which it works, like
right.
how they communicate as like a hive mind or something.
Yeah. So because none of that is addressed, it's not explored in the plot. And
Yeah.
I would say like that sort of thing where a body can take itself apart and be autonomous in its own way, especially on an organic being, that doesn't come up a lot. So, is it unique as in this is the only time it ever comes up? I can't say for sure. Obviously not entirely because of this guy from the Suicide Squad. But I would say it's novel enough that it would check off that box. Like, it's not something that comes up so often that you're like, oh, here he goes again, taking his body apart.
Oh, you had to go and mention Chekov.
Why, what?
I miss him.
Oh, man. I thought you were like just still ruminating on me mentioning him like 20 minutes ago.
Oh, no.
Right. Yeah. Got it. Yeah. So, I mean, if anything, it checks off that box, but the fact that it doesn't check off the other two, obviously, it's not proper. But did you enjoy it?
Sure. I mean,
Right?
there were a lot of parts. I say a lot. There was like 3 parts that just like made me laugh. When Kirk was going down to the planet and BEM was insisting on going, he's like, "This is not time to insist." Like, it seemed like pushback, and he's like, "All right, let's go." Like, it was just like immediately, like, almost like one of those computer choose your own adventure games. Like, you just choose the next bit of dialogue, and it doesn't matter if it fits what happened before. And then at the end, when BEM was going to kill himself, and the intelligence was like, "No, don't." He goes, "Meh." Like the sound like that he made, it really caught me off guard. I laughed at it for way too long. I went back and I watched it again. It was really funny.
Nice. All right. So that's a no, yes, no. Not proper Star Trek, but I enjoyed it for being the first animated series. So here's the thing. Picking it apart, I don't think it holds up. But on my initial viewing, I was enjoying it. Like I said, I was here for it. But I'm also here for it for the cheesiness of the animation. I totally agree with you that the animation is very limited and it's very disappointing / frustrating that there isn't more, especially given the budget that you found. But knowing how cheesy it is, and having known that almost my entire life, like I knew what I was going into, and I was definitely enjoying the the restraints they put upon themselves for the animation.
I think what Paul would say is that I liked how short it was, and that made it tolerable. So I'll say that yes, I liked it, but definitely not Star Trek.
Definitely not Star Trek. But okay, so you bringing up the time was also really interesting. Like, I really struggled with it being 32 minutes or 23, whatever it was. I was
23.
like, how is this still going? Like, I've already watched 40 minutes of this 20-minute episode.
Yeah.
And it's amazing
they
how
get captured a lot in 23 minutes. Like, that's the thing that it happened again, and I was like, really?
Right. I mean, that's the thing that amazes me the most is how much was packed into this episode with how long it felt and it being a third of an hour.
Mm-hmm.
It does not feel fast paced.
Yeah. But I probably watched it in fast speed.
Do you not know, or
that's just been my pattern in the past.
Okay. Right. But yeah, like it should have moved at a breakneck speed for as much as what happened, and it did not. It plodded along, and it's very impressive that they were able to do that.
That's what they're going for.
Yeah. All right. So you go with Are you good with seeing what we're watching next?
Yeah.
All right, so keeping with the new series theme and season 2, episode 2 theme.
Nice.
Nope, that's wrong.
Bummer.
Because that's got to be 102. There is no second season of it. Season 1, episode 2 of Prodigy. And the episode is called Starstruck.
Paul, okay. I'm really sorry for the cricket that's been in the background the whole time.
just you're just out on the back porch enjoying a nice quiet night. And the blurb states, even with the guidance of their hologram advisor Janeway, the crew of the Protostar is tested when their ship is on a dangerous cosmic collision course.
I'm so excited to have Janeway back.
She's so smart.
She is so smart.
I'm just wondering if hologram Janeway is as smart. That's the big question.
How could she be?
All right. Yeah, she only has a limited number of responses.
Yep.
Yep. So I've been Jonathan.
And I've been Paul.
And this has been The Measure of an Episode.
But you already knew that. I don't know. I'm doing my impression of like you guys' impression of her.
No, that's exactly what you do. You've done it every time, Paul.
Yeah.